So that's what he's saying again. Truth is leaking out. We've tried everything we could to suppress it, but now it's coming clear that there is no alternative design for the family. These things are disasters for children. That's what we're hearing over and over again. Disasters for mothers. And the two groups of people that we've been proclaiming we're doing all this liberation on behalf of, it's so clear that it's not working for them. We need to tell people the truth.
Hi, welcome to Jeremy Pryor's podcast, or what I like to call Jeremy Pryor Unfiltered. I'm his daughter and producer, Kelsey Gall, and we are excited to bring you seasons of content all the way from Tolkien to theology, from business to family. If you like to contemplate deep philosophical ideas across a wide range of topics, you've come to the right place. Make sure you give us a follow so you don't miss out on future episodes.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with my lovely wife, April. How's it going, April?
Hello. I'm doing good.
Yep. Planning a wedding. Almost there. A couple more weeks. It's going to be awesome.
We are becoming experts at wedding planning.
That's right. Yes.
It's our third wedding in under 3 years.
And 2 more to go someday.
Yeah.
God willing. Yeah. So we're figuring it out slowly. How we do weddings. I think that's the thing that's every time getting to do it. Like the first time you're like, how does everyone else do weddings? Let's just do that. Now it's like, okay, we've done that. Let's do a little more our way, So yeah, this will be fun. We have lots and lots of help. We've got what we're calling side quests.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So Kobe, our almost son-in-law's, he has been going on for the last 3 years, all kinds of places with our family to Israel. And then where else? We went all over the place with him. Florida. Yeah. All the places we go. And now we've been going on these smaller day trips or whatever. And he's like, oh, side quests.
Amish country.
Yeah, that was our side quest. So we got these side quests. We got a drink bar. We got a cigar place. We've got like all kinds of cool little things. Maybe a photo booth. Anyway, it's going to be weird. It's going to be crazy.
We have Operation Wedding Squad.
Ooh, yes.
Helping us pull all this off.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, we decided this time to hire less and rely more. We're part of a body. Yeah. We got lots of friends. Let's just come together and do this thing. All right. Speaking of coming together and do this thing. So this podcast, I'm kind of thinking of as the truth is leaking out. So all 3 of these, I just want to play for you three Instagram reels that have gone viral, and that all are kind of in a very similar vein, and they all kind of sort of speak to the truth leaking out, something that we weren't really allowed to say, something that people really resisted talking about, but now is being said in polite company. And it's like, finally, oh, wow, we can say that now. We can talk about that now. And yeah, it's really important that we do. So anyway, I would like to play, and you guys don't have to be on social media. That's why people send me these awesome reels all the time. Thank you guys for sharing with me. They can see what I'm into, and they're like, hey, have you seen this? And 99% of the time the answer is no, I haven't seen it. So I have now seen these 3, and they are really interesting. So I will play these for you, and then we will discuss them.
I'm going to be aggressive because nobody wants to hear this, because what you want me to say today is actually being a single mother is totally possible. It actually isn't. It was never meant to happen for the human race, number 1. Number 2, single biggest determiner of whether a mother is a good mother. What do you think it is? This is going to blow your mind when I tell you the answer. Whether they have a supportive partner. The major argument for good dads is actually, can the dad be there for the mom? Because it's like a direct chain is what we see. What you see is that if you've got a father figure, basically, who's supportive to the mother's energy goes towards the children. But the second that she doesn't have that supportive energy, she collapses, is what happens. And then the kids get starved. And we're not actually supposed to be living in a single family household, so it's supposed to be a lot more support towards mom than just dad. But I'm going with standard societal structure. You are a victim of a society that was never meant to work this way.
So I'm curious, April, how you respond to that. She's basically saying, and honestly, like, I think people were terrified to say things like this because single moms have the hardest job in the entire universe. And the last thing they need is people saying to them, sorry, it doesn't work, and so we're constantly being forced to pick between telling young people the truth about the way that God actually made the world and the way the world actually works, the way God made the family, and the difficulty that this could put on those who, for whatever reason, maybe often through no fault of their own, they can't live out that life. And so I think there's been a huge swing towards being empathetic towards the single mothers in a way that has created a lot more single mothers. Because unfortunately, the way this works is if you don't sound the alarm bells that this is not a good idea, you're going to get more of it. And so I think at this point, people are saying, we've got to tell people. And so, yeah, what she's saying is the research is saying that the single biggest determiner for whether or not a mom is flourishing is whether or not she has a supportive partner. That's not like rocket science. Like what makes a great mother is a great father. But we're not allowed to say that. There's been, again, the empathy has been, turned up to a 10. And so we're not telling people that these things are incredibly interrelated and that no one was ever meant to try to be a single parent. So being a single parent is a catastrophe. And so we need to find ways to alleviate the catastrophe. But we have to actually talk about the design of the family in order for us to do that. And that does make it difficult for those who are listening who are not able, for whatever reason, to participate in that, that ideal design. But April, yeah, what does this start for you?
Well, I think I'd like to take it from the angle of someone who is married, is trying to make it work, and dangling in the back of their mind is the possibility of just ending this marriage because it's hard. And um, the the voices are so loud out there, making it sound like single motherhood is like you're the girl boss. It's not that bad. We can do it. We're women. We can do anything. And the if that is even a slight dingle in your head, and then you're hearing all these awesome positive things about it, then it increases the likelihood of you saying like that's an actual possibility for me. And you know, if you are entering marriage and you are thinking that there could be a back door if things get hard, like, you're not planning on it, but like it could get hard. I might end up divorced and a single mom. Then, you know, are you doomed to failure? Because that's kind of like how you're going into the marriage question mark. Um, and so to have someone come out and say like, it's not like, it is not good. It will not go well. Single motherhood is, I mean, she said you can't do it. Like saying something that strong is like, wow, okay. So it's not a possibility, or it's not something that is like, you know, if things go really south, I'm not planning on them, but what if they do? There's not this back door. It's
Right.
like not an option. So I
Yes.
feel like having someone come out and say the thing really helps you as you're like on, because we're on the end of having a daughter who's about to get married. And so, you know, hearing her convictions about things, and her fiance's convictions about things is so encouraging because, you know, divorce is just not an option. It's not part of the conversation. Like, let's talk about divorce in terms of what do you believe about it? Oh, you believe it's not even an option. Okay, cool. That means we're gonna have to work really hard on all the thing when the hard things happen, when hard things come up, and they will. We're gonna work through them. We're gonna
Right.
figure it out. And I think the societal voices have not been helpful
Right.
in that
Yeah. Yeah. We're not looking at the
realm.
macro reality. We live in the country with the single largest population of single parent households in the world. In the world. We just passed Sweden for this distinction. So we are living all in ground zero of where we believe more than any other culture in the world that this is possible. And this is why, in the face of that, we need to say these things. Because to your point, April, this doesn't happen by accident. People are like, well, how, don't say that because you're making it harder on people that are sort of forced in that situation. But you guys, we're creating single parent households at a clip that has never been seen in human history. The divorce rate
Yeah.
in India is 1.1%.
Yep.
Like there are cultures that don't do this and they don't see this as an option. It's not easy, but I think it starts with just saying there's only one way to do this. And I think the other reason besides empathy for single parents that we tend to not want to talk about this. The other reason is because
The Family Plan Calendar is the new way to keep your family team organized. Plan your rhythms, menu, household chores, and notes for the family all in one place. Visit familyteams.com to purchase.
in the absence of a strong root structure of Christianity at the base of our culture, the value that has become the religious value that is at the bedrock of American culture is freedom. And freedom is not the most important value. Freedom is a great tool to pursue other values. We need to be free so that we can love one another. We need to be free so that we can commit to one another. We need to be free. It's one of those prerequisite values. It's one of those things that we need to have. Once you have it, it needs to move aside and be used for other things that are far more important. And I think that because
Yeah.
we no longer agree on anything else that's more important, somehow this value has become so high that people are saying, look, we just have to all agree that being an American means that we can experiment with an endless number of alternative lifestyles. Like, don't tell me that the family is the way to do things, the traditional family, where there's a husband and there's a wife, there's a father and mother. Like, there's lots and lots of ways to do this, and we need to promote those things, not just because people get into really bad situations where they need out, but just to give people more freedom, more freedom. So I think again, this value is killing us right now, and we have to be really careful of why this is being promoted as a possibility, because you're not going to be more free um, when you are trying to raise a family on your own, and your children are going to experience a lot of problems with freedom. And so it's a self kind of refuting value when it becomes primary. It's so important that it be nested underneath other values that are far more important.
I remember when we have a family friend that became a widow at a pretty young, her kids were pretty young. She had like 5 kids, ages maybe like 12 down to baby or something like that, 10 down to baby. And we were visiting with her maybe a year or 2 into this, and she was saying a realization that she was having, and she said, "I'm realizing that on my best day, I will never be all that my kids need. They need a dad and they need a mom." And of course, she was a single mom because of, this situation. Like her husband died suddenly. And all of a sudden she was ushered into this new realm. But just hearing her say that, I was just like, wow. I really thought you could rise to the challenge, or like I thought it was possible to be a
Yeah.
single mom and to just your sleeves and get. And I think I realized that how much the culture had kind of infiltrated my mind in that way. And then to hear her say that, I was like, wow, okay, that's really interesting. Someone who's actually experiencing it and going through it.
Yeah, man. So what creates a really good mother is a very supportive father. And
Yeah.
again, the truth is leaking out. You said I was the same way. I think the reason why like we're both like maybe being kind of pushy about this topic is because I think we both felt kind of taken in by the culture at some level. Like, oh, we're, not that we ever questioned that this was the ideal, but of course it works. There's lots of ways to make it work in other ways. I think that that is a myth that desperately needs to be exposed. So let me play this one for you, and we'll discuss this.
Your role is to take care of your wife while she takes care of the baby. So that means you got to watch her, because this is going to tire her out. It's a full body experience for a woman, right? I mean, first of all, she's pregnant, and that's a hell of a thing, especially in the last month. Then she has to give birth. And I think that's something men have no real comprehension of. And then she has to recover. And then that baby is like desperately vulnerable and requires everything the woman has to provide for the first, absolutely, for the first 2 months. So you got to stand in the background and you got to watch her, and you got to make sure that she doesn't get overwhelmed, because that's when you need to be in there. You need to go in and say, look, you need a rest. I'll take care of the baby. I'll watch. And so everything's going fine, and I'll wake you up if it's necessary. But you got to spell her off. That's how it looks to me, is her primary responsibility is to take care of the baby. And your primary responsibility is to take care of her.
All right. What do you think of that, April?
I love it. That's very, very real.
Yeah.
Very practical. I mean, anyone who has gone through that experience, having been pregnant in the last month of pregnancy, perhaps the last, if you're overdue, those last week, 2 weeks can feel like, an eternity. Um, and then to go through the actual birth and then to get on the side of recovery. Those are all those periods of time slash period of time are the most vulnerable time in a woman's life. And you need to be taken care of during that time. And it might be easy with one because you don't have another child to take care of. But when it's your second or more, then there's just these demands like on you from the other kids as well. And it's very hard to allow yourself to be taken care of because you feel the pressure to take care of everyone else. And so I feel like in the newborn stage, it's what a absolute blessing it is to have a husband who's got you. He's watching you. He's seeing what you need. He can, and I think a lot of first time dads might not know this, and then hopefully they learn it, but they also need to hear that that is okay, and that's what your focus should be on is
Yeah.
on I mean, you also need to be providing simultaneously, but then you also need to be watching your wife and being in tune and making sure she's okay. She'll get to the point where she'll be fine and can go back to, easing into taking on responsibilities of the household and taking care of you and making sure. And that's why it takes a lot of people in this stage. You need people making you meals. So the husband doesn't have to do every single thing, but his job being to take care of you and even just keeping his eye on you, knowing
Right.
that he's looking out for you. Like when he
Yeah.
looks at you, he's looking at you
Yeah.
to see how you're doing.
This is why I think it's so important to think about this as a design, So this is kind of
Yeah.
the way that, because all of the things that are being expressed by these, and we're going to look at an evolutionary biologist and something that he's studied in detail and look at some of the findings. Where people are finding over and over again, if they're being honest about the data, and what we've been through is decades of people not being honest about the data. People really starting with a narrative or a value like freedom. We need to give people more freedom. We need to make sure that women are more liberated. And so the only way that any study is going to be funded, only way that any study is going to get published is if it reinforces this kind of hyper freedom narrative. And this is what I mean by the truth is leaking out. And the fact is, you guys, that God was a really good designer, and He knew that women getting pregnant and having babies needed to be protected and provided for. And so this is the good design, and we need just to totally embrace it and understand it, not resist it, not try to construct some other narratives, not pretend like liberation is going to come through some other alternative design. These other designs simply don't work. They don't lead to good places. They lead to neglected children and burned out mothers. Like mothers need to be supported by a good father. And so we need to say this out loud, even if people are struggling, because this is the only way we're going to develop a culture of holding fathers accountable, training fathers to love their wives in a situation like this. You imagine getting married and having gotten a full dose of feminism as a man, and then to believe somehow that even though your wife is getting pregnant, even though your wife is giving birth, even though your wife wants to bond with this baby, we're equal and she needs to get out there and contribute her 50% of what this family needs. That is absolutely ridiculous. And that's the kind of thing that you start to believe if you buy into the things that the culture has been saying for decades in order to supposedly help with female liberation. It does not lead to liberated women. It leads to neglected children. And so that's where we're going with this next clip. So I want to play one more for you, and then kind of we'll round it up.
Do you think is the number one predictor of there being child abuse in a home?
An absent parent.
Very reasonable answer. And so usually in lecture one, when I'm teaching an evolution psychology course, I'll ask this question and I'll start putting all the students' answers. And they're all reasonable answers. If there is alcoholism in the home, if one of the parents had been abused in their past so that they mimic that behavior onto their children, then all reasonable. Well, what if and by the way, no one guesses what the real answer is. So then I say, well, guess what, guys? You just listed 25 reasonable predictors. The number one predictor is 100-fold more predictive than anything that's on that board. I've lectured this a million times. I'm getting goosebumps telling it to you right now. So let me explain what 100-fold means. In science, when let's say I want to check the efficacy of a drug and I want to compare it to a placebo, a sugar pill. Well, if it has a 1.2 odds ratio, meaning it's 20% more effective. So it's 1 to 1.2. That would be a big effect. 1 to 1.2. What I'm saying is 1 to 100. So it is astronomically greater effect than anything we would typically publish in science. Well, the number one reason, Stephen, I've kept you in suspense long enough, is if there is a step parent in the family. So there's 100-fold increase in child abuse if the home is not made up of two biological parents. This is why the fable of Cinderella is such a universal fable, because it speaks to an evolutionary principle.
That's God's side. And he's saying that, again, just look at the data, that if your goal was to stop child abuse, you would put 100% of your energy towards stopping divorce, because the creation of step parents in the home is the highest predictor, like he's saying, like 100x or 20-fold increase above anything else, or 100. I don't know. It was crazy to think about how predictive this is. There's something about the way God designed two biological parents that, yes, there's times where there's neglect. Yes, there's times where there's abuse in those homes. But again, I think that what has been hidden from people is trying to actually study the difference. And there's something that happens inside of the heart and life of a biological parent that causes them to want to nurture their biological children. And this is a really, really good thing. And this is why evolutionary biologists look at this, and they're very interested in studying this, because they realize that there is something innate. And as people who believe in creation, that is an intentional part of the design, that God made biological parents, and there's hormone changes, all kinds of things happen inside of a biological parent to cause them to not to exploit that new baby that's in the home. But all of a sudden you introduce a step parent at any stage of development of a child into the home, and they don't have that. And so there's wonderful step parents out there. So this is not to say that step parents are universally dangerous. It's just, if you look at the macro design, it's extraordinarily dangerous to create a culture in which this is normalized. And so that's what he's saying. Again, truth is leaking out, whether we've tried everything we could to suppress it, but now it's coming clear that there is no alternative design for the family that we can all embrace and say is equally as good. These things are disasters for children. That's what we're hearing over and over again. Disasters for mothers. And the two groups of people that we've been proclaiming we're doing all this liberation on behalf of, it's so clear that it's not working for them. And so we need to tell people the truth.
Are you following us on Facebook and Instagram yet? Look up @FamilyTeams to get even more free content and never miss out on event announcements.
So, April, what are your thoughts about what he says, this study?
It really is just wild. The first clip and the third clip are just really kind of, it's like announcement.
Yes.
God's design is really good. If you guys try your human way, it's not going to be good. Like the chances are so high of things going poorly. And like you said, it's like we just want to resist it because I think a lot of it is because we're so as a human, I can say this. Like we're so selfish and we so like want to live in our flesh. It takes a lot of self-control to not be selfish. It takes a lot of self-control to not give into your flesh constantly. And as believers, through the power of the Holy Spirit, through the ways of Jesus, we have what it takes to overcome those things. A lot of times the problems that we're having, that we're facing, are rooted in our own selfishness, our own lack of self-control, and allowing God to change us, allowing our minds to be transformed by his word, meditating on his word day and night, allowing parenthood, motherhood, and fatherhood to grow and mature us instead of resist what it has to give us, allowing his ways and his designs to like seep into our being. That is how we overcome the selfishness, the extreme things that make it really hard to live life well. And
Yes.
because we want to be a person that can have healthy relationships, we want to be attached to people. We believe that there is such a thing as healthy attachments, to have an interdependence in your marriage and in your family with your kids. And as you're getting to the place of like enfolding in-law kids and grandkids, like your family's expanding. Like this is a beautiful thing. The good life described in Psalm 127 is, old people sitting around the table with their generations surrounding them. Like that is the good life. And if we really want that, then we need to walk the path daily of surrendering our life to the Lord. Jesus is Lord. And here you go. Here's my day. Here's my heart. Here's my selfishness. And I don't think I have anything specific to say about the step parent thing, all the other than just it is another indicator that the ways we try to um subvert God's design is potentially a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. So important to not give in to the propaganda that says these are equal. These are equal pathways. There's lots of
Right.
alternative ways to do family. There is not. That is
Mm.
not true. It's not true biblically. We knew that. We know that the Bible advocated for a specific design, but it's not true in terms of any kind of study that's objective, that has looked at the data. Like we know that it's not only clearly better to go with the God-given design, but the difference is enormous. Is in that's why I think it's important to think about this from the perspective of not alternative lifestyles, but God's design and disastrous tragedies, right? And again, like people die, things happen, and tragedies occur, and sometimes we just have to make the best of it. But it doesn't do any good to the culture, to the children, to the next generation, to those we're discipling, to cover up the fact that it is a tragedy and it is a disaster. And so the more we think of it that way, the more we will, I think, really put in the effort that we need to, so that whenever possible, we do keep these families together and thriving, and that we don't fall prey to temptations that are speaking to us that, oh, it'll be okay. There are all these great ways. No, that is just not true. And so we're here to
Yeah.
tell you guys, it's so clear, and never be ashamed or embarrassed to promote the way that the Bible describes God's design. Like that,
Yeah.
it's you can be very you're on such solid ground that God knew what we needed through divine revelation to be clearly just revealed to us as God's ways. And then when we embrace them, it creates a different kind of lifestyle. And I think that this difference between alternative lifestyles and God's design is going to get stronger and stronger. The distance is going to get clearer and clearer to people. And so we need to be unashamedly saying, look, I am for God's design 100%. I think it's better for women. I think it's better for children. I think it's better for men. It works out better for everyone, and it's better for society. So yeah, I want to just encourage you guys with that word. And the truth is leaking out. It's a good thing, and we need to be saying these things with clarity and boldness. So thanks, April, for jumping on here today.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to Jeremy Pryor's podcast. Make sure you hit that follow button so you don't miss out on any future content. Follow Jeremy on Twitter and Instagram, as well as his Substack blog, all linked in the description. See you next time.